Hello, and welcome to Stream of Conscience, brought to you by Democracy for America, Fairfield County, a group that's always looking for new members. Today we have Amy Kalafa from Weston. Amy is a documentary film producer. She's been in the business for 25 years. But we're not here today to talk about films in general, but in fact about one film that she made a couple of years ago and a book that's following up that's just about to come out now. So the film is Two Angry Moms. And here I have the DVD of it. Two Angry Moms sounds like a little combative. What's it all about?
Yes, and I do get letters from people who don't like the word angry in the title, but it was intentional because it gets attention. What we're angry about is really the state of the way we feed kids in our country, and particularly in schools. I decided I would focus my documentary on school food really because it's a microcosm of the whole junk food universe. It's not that I want to point fingers just at the schools. The schools are kind of at the mercy of the industry and the entire food system in our country. But I wanted to learn more about, why we were in such a crisis in terms of childhood health and obesity and type 2 diabetes, and I went to the schools and started to learn.
So how is it that you first got involved? I mean, what piqued your interest in this?
Personal reasons. I had my own personal health issues that I had learned the connection between eating really, nutrient-dense, healthy, whole, fresh food and how it affected me. And then I had a couple of kids, and I brought them up on mostly organic food. We're not 100%, but,
right.
As healthy as I could, but also being mainstream. I didn't want them to feel ostracized from what
Sure.
other kids were eating. And so I'd long been passionate about it for my family, and then I am a filmmaker. I'm a television producer and editor, and I'd always gone to the people I'd worked with and said, hey, why don't we make a TV series about, politics of food and its impact on health? And I'd get people scratching their heads and saying, it doesn't sound really sexy to me.
Nobody's interested.
Nobody's interested. So about, now it's been probably 5 or 6 years, the headlines suddenly were, CDC predicts, 30% of the kids born in the year 2000.
The statistics are really shocking.
They're shocking. These kids are going to have type 2 diabetes, by the time they're adults, and many of them even younger.
Even younger, yes.
And this is the first generation in our nation's history that's predicted to have shorter lives than those of their parents. And that really, that hit home. It upset me. I said, we do know what to do about this. Why do we have the blinders on?
Right.
And it made me realize that, I'd always been considered kind of counterculture for eating the way I did and feeding my kids this way. I said, no, this should be how everybody eats.
So you have a couple of kids,
yeah,
and you feed them primarily organic food at home, good food and locally produced food, I think.
Yes.
But then they get to school. What happens at school?
Well, what happens at school, and I get letters all the time from people saying, if you care so much, why don't you just tell parents to send your kids in with a packed lunch? And that is exactly what we did for a lot of years, and
right.
I never really paid attention to what my kids were eating at school.
Okay.
So when I got to the point where I said, stop saying somebody should make a film about this, I realized somebody might be me. I went to my daughter's middle school,
okay.
and I said, so how
This is up in Weston.
This is in Weston. How does the lunch program work?
Yeah.
I really didn't know much about it. We had put $20 on account there in case she forgot her lunch or she wanted a drink or a snack or something like that.
And what kind of choices did she have if she wanted a drink or a snack or forgot her lunch?
Well, there you go. I really didn't know. So the nutrition person there said to me, she was the nutrition director. She said, well, I can't show you, what kids are eating on this computer readout because that's private information. I said, well, my daughter has an account. Let's use her.
Let's look at hers.
So I was kind of picturing, water and maybe some soup or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So on camera, I'm reading the printout, and it's chips, Rice Krispie treats, Pop-Tarts, cake, chips, sodas. I mean, now we don't have so much sodas in school because things have changed.
Right.
But at that, and I was truly, truly shocked. So that's now one of the first scenes in the movie of how I became an angry mom. I said they're undermining all the work we're doing at home. We send our kids to school to be educated.
Yep.
We expect that they're teaching them things that we feel are the right things to teach them.
Right.
And yet in the cafeteria, even if they're getting good messages in health class, they're being told that that's okay. You can make a lunch of chips and soda and Rice Krispie treats, and nobody is minding the store, literally.
And the whole food business in this country around children is primarily based on sugar.
Yes.
And it's everywhere. Every time they turn on the television, every game that they have, when they go to McDonald's, every place you turn, the food choices are not good, and they're carefully calibrated to suck you in and get you hooked on sugar and high fats, all things which are not good for you and which are found very rarely in the environment if you were to eat food that was produced locally.
Yes.
So what do you do? You're a mom. What do you do? What does any mom do?
Well, that's exactly what the book and the movie are all about. What do you do? You know, we understand that there's these problems, and first what I showed people is like, how did it get this way? Because I wanted to understand, how did this happen?
Yeah.
But then exactly, what do you do? How do you fight something, how do you fight the system? Because that's really what it is. And there's, I have action plans, I have lists, there's, every chapter in the book is a different what do you do. But it really boils down to, for me, is becoming an advocate and becoming an active advocate.
So the movie is called Two Angry Moms.
Yes.
But the book, and this is a little flyer for the book, shows the cover, is called Lunch Wars.
Lunch Wars.
So we're still in a very combative kind of frame of mind here. Tell me about Lunch Wars.
Well, sometimes you really do feel like you're in a war, and again, a lot of that is to get people's attention, because we really do have to fight for the health of our kids. But as an advocate, we don't want to be combative. We don't want to approach school administrators and local business people and even our government officials in an adversarial relationship.
You're not trying to put them on the defensive.
Not at all, because anybody who's working in school nutrition is there because they care about kids. They're not.
You would hope so.
They're not becoming millionaires doing this.
Right.
So yes, there's definitely an industrial side and a marketing side, but we're all kind of victims of that. And you've probably heard expressions like "vote with your fork," and our kids eat 3 meals a day. As parents of very young kids, we have a lot of control over that, so we really have to start by raising them early on really good, fresh, local, healthy, organic food, so that by the time they get to school, the other influences that they're going to find there will have less of an impact on them. So that's one thing, is starting early. Once they get to school, as advocates, again, we have to really work with the administration, work with our food service directors, unite with other parents, and not just look at the food, but look at the entire food environment, and really try to create something that's sustainable. Because the way it is now, if you walk into a school cafeteria, you see styrofoam, you see wrappers, you see so much waste, you see a lot of food waste.
It's a throwaway society.
Right, and because the kids aren't even eating the food,
right.
Because it's usually not that good. So you've got to really look at the whole system. So one of the things that I recommend is actually auditing the school food system. Now, a parent who's willing can do that themselves or with a group of advocates, forming a wellness committee or nutrition advisory committee. You can do that, but you can also hire people who are experts who will come in and look at all those things.
And are you working with groups here in Fairfield County or elsewhere to put these into practice?
As much as possible, and it tends to be school district by school district, and I've found that that's the way it is all across the country. School districts have a surprising amount of autonomy in a lot of decision making, and so it's an ideal grassroots issue. Because where we live, we have small school districts because we have small suburban towns, but nearby is Bridgeport, New Haven, Stamford, which are much larger cities, but each of those is a school district. So there's different kinds of configurations. But working within the school district, you can start to create a wellness policy, because every school district in the country is mandated to have a wellness policy in place. And on the to form the wellness policy, their mandate also says you have to have parents and school administrators and food service people and students and health personnel, so maybe the school nurse, a health teacher, physical fitness. Everybody has to, the whole community really has to be represented, and the standards that you set in your policy can be way over and above the standards that the federal government determines for
So
school.
if you're a parent and you're interested in this, how do you find out about getting involved with this policy making? It sounds pretty sort of intimidating.
Yeah, it can be intimidating again, and that's why I show examples of it in the movie, and I have a lot of stories. The book, you know, one of my favorite parts of writing the book, and then even now when I reread the book, are the individual stories of advocates and how they did what they did. And a lot of the stories are, you know, the kind of transformational stories where you see it's just a mom, a dad, a school chef who said, I'm not going to take it anymore. Okay, let's see. Let me think of a good one. Well, there's a couple locally, so I'll talk locally. One of the first schools that I found that was like an amazing example to me is a private school. It's called the Uncoa School in Fairfield. And there's a chef there now named Peter Gorman who has a food program that, you know, anybody who walked in there and saw that would want to send their kid to that school just because of the food.
Because of the food. Nice.
Sharon Lauer, who's the head of school, was really inspired at a conference she went to, and she learned about school food systems and how it could be changed. So she took this message back to her school, and within a few short years, they had really created something very transformational. So they have a dining hall that's family style with round tables.
Okay.
This
is a day school?
This is a day school.
Okay.
Children of all grade levels are kind of mixed and matched at the tables with the idea that, you know, you can't choose your family. There's a teacher at every table.
Okay.
And the school...
So no food fights.
No food fights. The food is served by the kids, and the kids help clean up. So they're very involved with the whole process of eating. And then the food itself, they, you know, Chef Peter has worked very, very hard to find local sources for almost everything. I can't say it's 100%, but
it's very difficult.
It's really close to that. I mean, he bakes his own bread. He's got a farm, Sport Hill Farm, right up the road that he gets fresh eggs and fresh produce.
Is this a public school or a private school?
This is a private school. So, you know, that was
what about
a little
public
bit
school?
like
Most people have their children going to a public school.
Exactly. So that was one of the early examples, and I thought, well, this is a great model, but can we really do this in a public school?
Yeah.
Very different, right? So now we have two great examples that I found that are in the book.
Okay.
In New Haven,
which is a city. So we're not talking about a little suburban community where everybody might be, you know, whatever. I mean, this is a place where we're dealing with an urban environment with all kinds of economic, social groups, with the pressures of a large city administration, you know, big, complex school districts, not small local school districts. Right.
So pretty much every economic and operational challenge you can imagine. New Haven has.
Absolutely.
I don't know the exact percentage, but probably something like 80 or 90% of the kids in the district are eligible for free
or subsidized lunch.
Or subsidized lunches. So, you know, very low socioeconomic level. Not a lot of money there. When I first heard about what was going on in New Haven, there was a lot of there was kind of an uprising because the food was outsourced to a food service management company. They were losing money. The food service workers weren't happy. The parents weren't happy. Everybody wanted to do something about it. But what often happens, which happened in my district, is the administration says, well, we'll just switch and we'll get a better food service management company because they don't want to have to deal with it. Well, New Haven did something very interesting, and it's because they had a chef who was also a mom named Tegan Engel, who was head of their nutrition committee, and she was a very active advocate. And along with many other people, they decided that they wanted to take control of the food service back and do it in-house. And so they reached out and they hired a chef. His name is Tim Cipriano, and his moniker is the local food dude. So they knew what they were getting into here. They didn't go for some guy who had been in corporate food service all his life. They wanted something out of the box. And they got Tim. And Tim has been in New Haven for a couple years now, and I went there recently and saw what he was doing. And, you know, this is food that I would be happy to have my kids eat. It's not perfect.
Now, is this throughout the entire school system, or is it just a few schools?
No. This is
so this is not special. This is the school food.
This is the school food, so
Wow.
there aren't a lot of choices.
Yeah.
Which, you know, everybody
Okay.
thinks you got to give kids a lot of choices.
Right.
There are not a lot of choices.
I'm sure they vary the menu from day to day,
Absolutely.
but not so much choice in each particular day.
Exactly, and
Okay.
they, you know, but they try to provide enough options so
Right.
that, you know, if a child is a vegetarian, they'll have a vegetarian option. But and the food is simple, but it smells good, it tastes good. He really works hard to get the best quality ingredients he can, and it's a work in progress. I mean, he's working on it, but you know, and they're not serving those horrible flavored, chemicalized milks just because they think every kid has to, you know, drink milk with something in it in order to get it in them. And so he's really, you know, and he's working with the USDA, trying to get better commodity items. He's working with local vendors, and he's trying to get more kids growing things in school gardens. And so it's a whole system that he's trying to.
We're going to do a program on school gardens in Bridgeport, which is another terrific opportunity for people to learn about food and to come more in contact with the production of food. You know, food doesn't grow in the supermarket; it grows in the ground. So people need to, especially kids, need to become more aware of that.
Yeah.
In terms of the government at the state level, are you getting any support for this? Is there, you know, if someone lives in one of the towns here and wants to get involved, what should they do?
If somebody lives in a town in Connecticut, or you know, really anywhere, but in our county, I mean, there are various ways to get involved, and it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be the person who's, you know, trying to change the school food policy, because that takes a certain kind of personality and mindset. You have to be very tenacious. You have to be gracious. You kind of have to be a politician.
Right.
We're not all politicians, so maybe you
Thank
just
God for that.
maybe you just want to be the person who volunteers to help out in the school garden, or to start one if there isn't one. Or maybe you want to go into your child's second grade class with a blender and teach them how to make smoothies, or, you know, from real fruit without artificial ingredients. Or maybe you want to be the person who volunteers to head up a fundraiser that isn't junk food. There's a lot of things you can do that are a little...
So no more cupcake sales, are you saying?
You know, I have nothing against cupcakes, but it would be nice to provide alternatives too. And also, there's ways to raise money that don't necessarily have to be cupcakes.
Right.
And again, the book has lists and lists of ideas for alternative fundraising, alternative classroom parties, alternative rewards, because, you know, teachers are often in the habit of giving out candy and whatnot as a reward for a kid who does something well. So just really trying to encourage everybody in the whole school food environment to think differently about food, and not, you know, entice kids with junk, but really try to celebrate food in a different way, and give them things that have real nutrition.
I'm thinking about, I go into to Staples High School in Westport with the League of Women Voters that I'm a member of, and we do a class on voter participation with the civics classes. And what do we do at the end? But we hand out Tootsie Rolls.
See, you know, it's really ingrained in all of
carrots?
us.
What should we do?
Well, no, but you know, you hand out carrots and you're not going to get a lot of participation.
That's
So
right.
you really do have to think out of the box. And this
Yeah.
is where some of the chefs I've met who are so talented have really influenced me. So I went to something like that once with one of these chefs, and he went around, we were in Rhode Island, and he went around to the local organic market, and he found local honey, local yogurt, he got some nuts, he got some dried fruit, and he got these little mini Dixie cups, and he, you know, put the yogurt in. I think he had some homemade granola, and
Is
he
the
mixed it all
recipe for
together.
this in your book?
It'll be on the website. How about that?
Okay.
I'll put it on the website. And, you know, he passed around trays of these little Dixie cups.
Right.
And that was way better than a Tootsie Roll. And, you
Yeah.
know, he had those people literally eating out of the palm of his hand after
Nice.
that. So
That's
you know,
terrific.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to reading the book. I think it should be something that all of us pay some attention to, because we all have kids, and they all go to school. And, you know, as you said, when you go to school, you should be learning the right way to do things, not the wrong way. And I think we should be spending more time living an example rather than simply letting happen whatever happens because some other, you know, entity, some government, some, you know, organization is taking care of it for us. I think we have too much of our lives that are not enough intentional. It just gets away from us a bit.
Yeah.
So people can get your book on where? On Amazon?
It's available on Amazon. It's available in bookstores, Barnes and Nobles. A lot of independent bookstores are going to be carrying it.
And the Two Angry Moms, which is?
So we have a website, which is www.angrymoms.org. And there's links to get the movie, to get the book, to download. Anything you need if you want to be a host of a screening in your school district, all kinds of materials that you can hand out.
You can take the film and you can show it to people in your home and get them interested. You can
local library,
give it to libraries, do all kinds of things. So this is an organizing tool.
Exactly what it is.
And the book is has lots of ideas.
The book is a manual. It's your guide.
The book is a manual. So between these two, if you have some interest in this, this is a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Amy, thanks so much for coming in. Thanks also for all the work you're doing.
My pleasure. Thanks, John.
And now, a Stream of Conscience book review with Anne Galloway.
In 1961, as he was ending his second term as president, Eisenhower warned about the unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. He said, "The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist." Woodward's book focuses primarily on an assessment conducted at the highest levels concerning what to do about the Afghanistan war, how to set and achieve realistic goals, and make a reasonably early troop drawdown. As I read this book, I kept asking myself whether the military-industrial tail was trying to wag the presidential dog. Is the president really commander-in-chief, or just a convenient prop? Given leadership changes at the Pentagon and the CIA, this is a particularly good time to discuss Obama's wars. For context, we know that Bob Woodward is very well connected and trusted by many Washington insiders. There doesn't seem to have been any document, whatever its security clearance level, that Woodward was prevented from seeing as he sought material for this book. And at the end of the book, he quotes Obama, who says, "Sounds like you've got better sources than I do." The president told Woodward his primary concern about this war: the U.S. can absorb a terrorist attack, and while he would do everything to prevent another 9/11, what keeps him up at night is concern about a nuclear weapon in the hands of terrorists blowing up a major American city. And this is where U.S. involvement in Pakistan links to the Afghan war. Few al-Qaeda remain in Afghanistan, yet they have embedded themselves in the border regions of Pakistan. Some of Pakistan's security forces are unreliable, and Pakistan has nuclear weapons. Second only to the nuclear weapons issue, the most disturbing part of this book is its portrayal of General Petraeus. The president continually charged his security team with preparing drawdown options for Afghanistan. Yet he repeatedly is presented with a single recommendation, best summarized by what Petraeus tells him: "I think you keep fighting. This is the kind of fight we are in for the rest of our lives and probably our kids' lives." So the tug of war between civilian and military leadership are on clear display in this book. Is this country ready for Petraeus at the CIA? No one seems to know what these people do, but periodically we learn about private contractors working for the CIA without civilian oversight who murder civilians or botch some rogue mission. That's surely one way to make sure that we have continuing wars. With Petraeus at the CIA, do we really want the fox watching the chickens or the tail wagging the dog? And has Eisenhower's warning 50 years ago become a fait accompli? This has been a Stream of Conscious book review. I'm Anne Galloway. Thanks for watching.
That's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in learning more about progressive political action in Fairfield County, please check out our group, Democracy for America. We meet the first Wednesday of every month at the Silver Star Diner in Norwalk from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., and we're always looking for new members.